Okay, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, depending on where you are. Welcome to another SIG CLI bi-weekly installment. Today is October 23rd. My name is Maciej and I'll be your host today. Quick announcements that are being repeated over and over for the past couple of meetings is we have 2 sessions planned for the KubeCon North America happening in less than a month. One will be a 90-minute session during the main part of the conference, where we will be replying live to questions, concerns, and literally picking the topics that people will want to talk about. And the other one is during Contributor Summit. At 9:30 a.m., we will have a 90-minute session where we will introduce what kubectl is, how to get involved in kubectl development, how to write plugins, and generally topics around contributions to SIG CLI. Not sure if Sean or Phil have any additional announcements, but if I don't hear anything, I'm gonna skip to the main part of the discussion.
Nope, none for me.
Okay. Do we have Lee on the call? Because I'm not seeing him in the participants list, but I was really interested in talking through his kubectl debug proposal. Okay, maybe he'll get a chance to join in the meantime. Let's skip on to the next issue in that case. So I think it was proposed somewhere in Slack or in the discussion with a couple of folks. There was a proposal to have, so by default, if you're interacting with kubectl with a running cluster, we will be doing a pre-validation of the resources you're submitting to a cluster using the OpenAPI schema. Up until this point, where the schema was not fully structural, thanks to awesome work from the SIG API machinery, we're getting significantly better at this idea. So the ratio noise to actual failures is getting closer to the validation that is happening on the server, but there are still some discrepancies between the two. And there was a proposal that for non-interactive kubectl invocation, we would turn the errors that are currently being produced, especially after we are turning on the structural OpenAPI schema, that the errors from kubectl validation are not errors and are not breaking the actual flow of kubectl, but rather in a non-interactive and only non-interactive, they are being just warnings. The problem that it is with this is that a lot of the flows that are using kubectl in the CI/CD will have to be updated to ignore the validation, at least until the point when they get a proper structural schema. So before we will eventually continue, and as one of the example was Cert Manager, where they raised this issue. So before we could actually go with one or the other approach, I wanted to hear from other folks what they feel about this kind of approach.
When you say warning, do you mean print a standard error?
Yes.
Okay.
Print a standard error, but we would not fail. Currently, if you don't explicitly pass validate false, kubectl will fail and will not even try to pass the resource over to the server because it failed the initial validation based on the OpenAPI schema.
Right.
And on a daily basis, when you're invoking kubectl manually, this is perfectly fine because you need to explicitly pass the flag. But in a non-interactive flow, like if you have a Jenkins setup or Travis, in all of those places, you'll have to actually go through those places and modify your current code to be able to support it, to have the validate false explicitly passed. And this is kind of a problem for at least for them to start with, and I'm pretty sure that there will be more users that might struggle with this.
What's the use case here? Like, is this, I guess this is for CRDs when you're putting in a resource that doesn't match the CRD schema and then want to store, like, aren't those fields going to be dropped anyway? Is this for version skew, or what's the use case?
In that particular case, it is the cert manager. When you're trying to install cert manager, you have to manually pass the validation. But since you're using the built-in mechanism, I'm not sure what the cert manager, what kind of mechanism they are using, you can't pass the flag through the machinery that the cert manager is using. That's why in their case, it is failing bad, and you're not able to use Flux CD, what they mentioned in that issue in the cert manager. That's why they brought it up. But I think it is some kind of a misconfiguration between versions and the CRDs that they have available.
I see. I see here they're setting preserve unknown fields true. This seems like a CRD specific thing because for built-in APIs, we don't preserve unknown fields.
Exactly.
And so if you're specifying fields the server doesn't know about, like, I can't imagine we want to encourage just going ahead and applying those anyway. But like, I guess because today you can support this with just setting validation to false, and they want, I guess they want the errors anyway, which they'll then ignore. Or, I mean, I guess or will people look at those? Is the intent people will look at the errors and then do something with them?
Honestly, I would hope so. But knowing how the word usually works around is that whatever we will turn into a warning will die in
yes,
the veins
become noise in the logs that people learn to ignore.
Exactly. That it is brutal, but it's brutally honest how usually warnings are being treated until something actually starts breaking. It is only when people will start looking at warnings and everything above.
Right.
So,
I mean, because if they just clear the schema for the CRD, this solves their problem too, right?
yes.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a problem with it per se. I just don't know enough to have to support it, because I guess my question would be looking at the issue, if you need to set preserve unknown fields true, and then you're disabling validation on the client side, what good does the schema do you at all?
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't say that I'm knowledgeable enough, but I don't feel too strongly in either direction, honestly. Changing the behavior, the current behavior, would hurt me more than actually, I guess, allowing those warnings per se. Yeah, that's why I wanted to. bring it up to discussion and see what other people think about it.
I think by default it should fail even in non-interactive mode, because if you have a GitOps system and something fails validation, like it's not clear that you want to apply it, right? In fact,
Yeah,
in most cases,
exactly.
I think you don't want to still, and you just want to fail and be like, you put a typo in your thing instead of making someone go find the logs. If there's some edge case where it's like, oh, we don't want to fail, but we do want the errors, like adding a new flag to say, fail on validation false. I mean, maybe that's fine. If it doesn't muddle up the code too much and introduce complexity, then I'm fine with it.
Yeah. Like, given that there's a reasonable, maybe not an easy way, but it's still a reasonable approach to bypass the initial problem, I'm kind of hesitant on actually implementing it, especially that given that the amount of work that the SIG API machinery put into the structural schema
Yeah.
and the direction that it is going forward, it will allow us to have a really strong validation on the server for CRDs. And then again, this is only for CRDs, and I'm worried that we would not have a check within the kubectl, which would only turn errors into warnings for CRDs and not for the built-ins, because that would be way too much hacky that I would allow
Yeah.
anything like that to pass.
Why don't we
Did
just
change?
I
Sorry,
just
go
say
ahead.
can they just run kube control apply with validation? Then if it fails, run it without validation. Like it should be idempotent, right? So like then you get your error messages and you get to apply your resources anyway. And it's like enough extra steps that it should be clear that, you must know what you're doing and really intend this behavior.
I mean,
Sorry, I interrupted someone else. I'm not quite sure who that was.
I think Nat was trying to say something.
Yep. I installed Cert Manager a couple of days ago, and so the docs are fresh in my mind. They say that you only have to pass the validate equals false flag on Kubernetes 115 and below. Are you aware whether something related to this changed with 116? Paste the link.
I mean, 116 was when the initial majority of the work for the structural schema landed. So I guess that's why.
I just don't understand why in 116 you wouldn't have to pass this validate false flag, which is
you would
screwing
have
them
to.
up.
You would have to.
Okay, then their docs are just wrong.
Above, else you receive validation. Well, it says relating to Kubernetes preserve unknown fields. So that may have been introduced in. This could have been changed in 116. I don't know, because this I think the CRD validation is done server side, if I recall correctly. Although maybe I'm wrong on that. I'm not.
The preserve unknown fields is a field level validation. So depending on how you set up your CRDs, V1 beta 1 has the preserve unknown fields set to false, but the V1, and I'm not sure if V1 is 16 or 17 already, V1 will have it to true, which basically means everything out not defined within schema will be rejected by the server. The marker X Kubernetes preserve unknown fields is something that allows you to set on a per field basis so that the pruning mechanism on a CRD
Okay.
excludes that particular field from pruning. So for example, if you have some kind of object embedding like configuration within your nested field, you would want to set on that configuration field, which most frequently is runtime row extension or runtime, row extension is the one. You want to have the pruning mechanism stay away from that particular field only. Other than that, I'm guessing I haven't looked through that particular CRD that they have in question for, but I guess, oh yeah, config, that particular one is the additional configuration to the webhook API server. And that makes sense. In that case, you just need to ensure that this particular field and everything within it won't be proactively pruned by the CRD pruning mechanism. So I guess that's fine.
So if I'm following correctly, then as 116 propagates its way into the world, this problem will just go away for Circuit Manager.
Yeah, I guess they just need to update their CRDs accordingly to whatever 116 requires.
Oh, then maybe I've got it backwards. I thought that's what they had done, but that support only existed in 116.
Okay, so maybe I'm not sure about how 115 is working, and 116 already fixed that one.
Yeah, it looks like it was fixed in 116. I don't know. This seems like kind of it seems like there's a workaround for this, and there's already, I'm not sure. Like, it seems like the value add here is pretty minimal.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, if there's like maybe a stronger argument, try the workarounds that we've suggested. I guess would be my response. Like, this seems like it's going away too, right? Like, if you're running supply the flag, if you're running 115 or below, so in, like, say it takes us a release to get this out, right? And then like 6 months after that, it's maybe everyone's using the new version, so it's not necessary anymore. I don't know. Right, but if you're using kube control 1, this would be in kube control 117, we'd introduce this feature, and by that time, if you're using kube control 117, you're probably using
116 already.
116 anyway, so you don't need this.
Yeah, I guess that's
I'd punt on this.
That's a valid option, and we can close this and eventually return if there will be more people hitting this problem. From what I've noticed, there was only one instance of this problem.
Great.
Okay, so the answer will be short no on this one.
Ask again later if this is still a problem. And
yes, exactly. Do we have Lee on the call?
I just pinged Lee. They are in a time zone where I guess it's evening. So having trouble getting hold of them.
I mean, in the meantime, I'm not sure how others get a chance to read through Lee proposal, but let me quickly tell you what it is about. So there's this feature called ephemeral containers that allows you to spin up containers within existing pods. There are some, I wouldn't call maybe downsides, but there are some requirements for you to be able to run ephemeral containers. First of all, you need to explicitly state at the pod spec level that you do allow ephemeral containers. And then you can add containers to your existing pod spec, because if you have ever tried modifying pod spec, you probably know that you cannot modify pod spec by default. because it is already running most of the times. So ephemeral containers expand this idea by allowing you to add additional containers to an already running pod spec. So that's a pretty neat idea. And the ephemeral containers also allow you to attach to an existing containers within a pod. They don't have any guarantees such as that they will be restarted and everything. They will start, and the moment that the container dies, no matter whether that was an error or it just finished its execution, it will be done, no restarting, nothing more. So it sounds like a perfect place for debugging, because you could literally spit up a container right next to your current running container that you're struggling with or you're having problems with. And it all looks very neat. My only problem is that this requires the pod spec to proactively turn on the ephemeral containers, and I'm not sure that it is always the case for your deployment or whatever workload you're running on. So what I would like to see is we expand this particular proposal not only for debugging running containers or debugging your any kind of workloads within a cluster is a problem still. And the area that Lee is covering in this particular proposal is with regards to the containers, distroless containers, meaning that you cannot by default exec into them. So the ephemeral containers for those particular containers is the only reasonable way. But not all workloads running in a cluster could be that way. So I was actually thinking about expanding and building on top of Lee's idea and proposing something bigger than just the ephemeral containers. I would like to see a broader proposal, and if I find the time, I'll try to sync with Lee as well. And if I get the time, I'll try to write it down as a additional cap built on top of what Lee proposes here, which would allow running a pod inside of your running app and be able to, or inject inject yourself or inject any tooling, and then debug your running workload. And before I start working on it, I would like to ask other folks how they feel about it.
Sorry, I missed that. You said creating a new pod?
Yeah, I would start with I mean, we would have different options. You could go either with a pod or with the ephemeral containers, depending on your use case.
I see. Because ephemeral containers, my understanding from the doc is like, those are meant to be sharing the same namespace and allow you to get information about that specific container. A pod, I'm guessing, would be for accessing services or that sort of thing, but not like getting PS.
Yeah.
So I think what I heard you saying is effectively like looking holistically about the debug workflow and inspection workflow, and including a number of different use cases.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense to me.
The thing is, if we introduce something like debugging, and I know that debugging is a problem for the majority of users. If we introduce something like kubectl debug, let's make it broad enough to satisfy different use cases for different set of users. I'm guessing there will be different use case for for the distroless containers, for those, the ephemeral containers are the only way to get into the particular containers.
How do you feel about putting this under alpha so that we can start getting user feedback on the existing debug workflow as we kind of figure out?
So we have another data point about this. Can you hear me, by the way?
Yeah, go ahead, Ahmed.
Okay, so I'm next to a highway. So sorry if you're hearing background noise. Apparently there are actually today 2 debug plugins. One is the one that Lee has written. We have onboarded that on Crew. And apparently there's another one that is written by someone else. If you search for like kubectl debug directly on Google, I think that's like the first result, and it has some 800 stars on GitHub today. I think that does not use ephemeral containers. My understanding is that it launches another pod within the shared namespace. So I guess, as Maciej said, there's like implementation for 2 of them out there.
When you say,
probably,
sorry, to clarify, when you say namespace, you meant Kubernetes namespace, not
Yeah, correct. Yeah. Like, I think they're able to launch pods within the same like IPS namespace, PID namespace. Is that correct? That's my understanding, at least.
I mean, in the OpenShift world, we also have OC debug command, which is from looking at the kubectl debug that you just mentioned. It is very similar because it is running a pre-installed troubleshooting type of an image. So I guess combining all 3 into a single, I know it will create a monster at some point in time, but if we try to figure out a reasonable approach to this, we could provide users with a valuable tooling for debugging both clusters, containers. I mean, in OpenShift world, we even go up to the point where we allow debugging a node through running a
privileged container.
Privileged container where you have full access to your node's file system. So, one single command, and then you can run everything. Although we don't support ephemeral containers yet. But I think that's why I would like to see all of those contained under a single command. And it seems reasonable to give users this flexibility.
Okay, I like the idea.
I think we should invite Lee to the meeting. I think maybe he's missing them because of the time zone, but I think maybe he can make an exception. I'll talk to him privately to bring him in.
Okay, that will be pretty cool. I'll definitely hold on with everything, and I'll sync with Lee. Is Lee from Asia or he's from Europe? Do you know, Phil?
I'm guessing Europe, based on the time zone message I'm getting. But I'm not certain. What time is it there, Maciej?
6:30 p.m.
Yep, he's in Europe.
Okay. In that case, I'll definitely sync in my usual times with him through Slack, and we could try, and we'll try to come up with a broader debug proposal, because I'm pretty sure that it is just valuable for the broader community. If like Ahmed said, the kubectl debug has 800 stars. I'm not sure how Lee's debug plugin is looking, but yeah, and I see that majority of us agrees to the point. And yeah, of course, we would start as an alpha command, since we are introducing something new. But definitely.
Sounds great.
Oh,
Yeah,
there's Lee.
the only thing I'd add is, like, if any piece of these were like, oh, this is valuable, we think this is valuable, but we're trying to figure out like what should the name of the command be, or like how does this command relate to this other command, that we just put them in alpha when they seem correct, and then put in the release notes we're going to change the names of these things and that sort of stuff as we figure it out.
Oh yeah, I've noticed Lee joining for short bit, but he's gone again. Okay, I'll sync with him offline and we will figure it out in our own time. Before we move, oh, there's Lee again.
Yeah, sorry about that. I added this to the agenda before vacation, and then vacation brain set in, and I apologize.
Yeah, no problem.
So Lee, what we discussed in the meantime is that what we would like to see, and I was one of the main, because I reviewed your proposal, we would like to expand your proposal to cover the functionality similar to kubectl debug plugin that is available, as well as OC debug functionality. OC is OpenShift, is an OpenShift client, CLI client built on top of kubectl.
Okay.
So we would basically not only allow running ephemeral containers, but we would also allow running pods for debugging your, even up to the point where you would be able to debug your cluster. How do you think about expanding your proposal for a broader set of functionalities?
Yeah, that sounds great, actually. I was talking with Amit about how to name the plugin for crew, and that sort of came up, right? Like I wanted it to be debug, but pod, it really only focuses at pod. If we could make it general purpose, I think that would be great. So I will definitely go back and review the part of the meeting that I missed when it gets posted.
Okay, awesome. I'll sync with you offline, and I guess we'll try to write the proposal together. Okay.
Sounds great. How do you feel about creating a repo in Kubernetes SIGs for the work on this?
Does it need a repo?
Yeah, I would even go all the way to, let's get the proposal up and running. We can outline the main functionality, and we can start cranking an alpha debug command. Even though we can start even cranking it in 1.17, even though it's not an actual feature, we can hide towards the end of the release the command so that it is not available for users, but we will continue working on the functionality.
Okay, you mean in kube control proper rather than using a plugin?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. It just, we would mark it as a super highly experimental thing, and then we can continue get the enhancements in shape and see how far we can go within the next releases.
Yep, sounds good to me.
Awesome. Okay, I think these are the two main topics that we had in the agenda. Oh, there's Michael with drain enhancements. Michael, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Michael Gugino. I work for Red Hat on OpenShift, and I'm also a member of SIG Cluster Lifecycle, focusing on the Cluster API project. I just want to introduce myself. Probably seen a PR from me the last few days fixing some bugs in Drain, and just want to give some context on what we're doing with that. So we're trying to build automation to add and remove machines to the cluster, both upstream and downstream. Downstream, we've been supporting our own version of Drain, and we're hoping to migrate away from that. And not too long ago, upstream kube control drain was refactored to make it more usable as a library. So we're currently consuming that upstream in cluster API. So the workflow is when you delete a machine, as we call it, first you drain the node and then you get rid of the VM. And so I have a couple more ideas and features I'd like to kind of add to that to more support that use case. Ideally, they'd be broadly applicable to other people consuming this as a library. So if you see more stuff from me, I just wanted to give you context on that, just so everybody knows what's going on. And then do you prefer like a full KEP for some of these small enhancements, or just maybe file an RFE issue, or what kind of engagement do I need to have there?
I don't think we need enhancements or like a full-blown cap for these, because I'm assuming that the majority of them are small improvements. I guess having some kind of an umbrella issue where you outline the plan for them would be a good start. It's hard for me to say at this point in time how much towards the cap you actually have to go if I don't see the scope of the work, because from what you're saying so far, it is the small improvements, more small fixes, and I'm not sure if it's worth the cap. If it will be a significant improvements where you will be rewriting a significant part of code, then my answer would be yes, I would like to see a cap for this.
Okay, yeah. Right now, I'm more along the lines of thinking of adding like a small configurable, adding like a context as we discussed in that other PR. So yeah, real small stuff. But I can file an RFE and outline some of those things, and if we need to go full cap, I guess we can do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah.
If it's under 150 lines of code and it doesn't change the user API, then I'd say don't file a cap. But
Okay.
but do create an issue that outlines the work and send an email to SIG CLI just so like there's a place for people to discuss. That's not the code review.
Yeah.
Cool.
Hi, Michael. This is Sean Sullivan. I just had a couple of quick notes on the drain work. Number one, if it might be useful to include Justin Santa Barbara in some of the PRs, because he actually did the drain refactoring that you're describing. And then the other thing is, to the extent possible, if we can add to the tests, since it is going to be used widely and vendored widely, I think that it would be really useful to enhance our test coverage. And your recent PR that had the Go routines, those are especially difficult to test. But if that's going to be an important part of any of your refactorings, hopefully we can somehow write some tests that are gonna cover that.
Yeah, I work with Justin Santa Barbara on the Cluster API project.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
Cool.
I work with him pretty frequently, and then also others from that project I looped in as well. Yeah, I mean, obviously tests are always good. I try to contribute tests when I can, and they don't like take a ton of work. Like we said, these leak go routine things that looks like it could get a little messy there, testing synthetically. But yeah, I definitely try to add tests where I can.
Cool. Thanks a lot. Good to meet you in person.
Yeah, especially if you're expanding on the work to provide a library that will be consumed by other users, I would say the tests are crucial, because that's most probably the only way to ensure that we don't break users in any way.
Hey, Michael, this is Sally. Hey, I have a small PR to improve drain up now. It just lists, when you run it in dry run, it will list the pods that would be deleted for you. Right now, when you run it in dry run, it does not. Might be interested.
Okay, cool. I don't think I have me personally, immediate need for that, but I'm sure it'd be useful to very many other people because it is sometimes a mystery what's going and what's staying.
Also, in regard of Drain, we've at Crew we've had a plugin submission where a user made a plugin that allows to evict a pod without violating the pod disruption budgets, which is something which is not possible with kubectl at present, unless I've overlooked something. Maybe that would also be something which could be included in baseline kubectl.
I'm not sure what you mean about not violating the PDBs. I mean, currently, when you use the kube control library, PDBs are respected, and the pod will be blocked. You'll get the 529 or whatever it is error.
Yeah, but if you do a kubectl delete, then I think the pod disruption budget is not considered. Is that correct?
Yeah, the eviction has to succeed, and then the kube control library behind the scenes calls delete, I believe. Or, no, excuse me. The actual PDB controller approves the eviction, and then delete is called. So I don't think there's anything on the API server portion blocking the call to delete. So that, yeah, you'd have to do that client side.
So maybe we could think about a flag to delete, so that a pod is not deleted if it would violate the pod disruption budget. I don't know if that would make sense.
I don't, well, that seems like it's not really in the context of Drain specifically, because Drain's going to use the eviction API if it's available. And so we wouldn't really hit that case. I guess that would just be more kube control, generally deleting something. So I don't think there's a workflow where you can currently specify just go straight to delete. It's always going to use the eviction API if it's available.
Yeah, okay, cool.
Okay, I guess that's all with regard to Drain, and we can move on to the stand-ups. And I see Crew is the first one on the line. Go ahead, Crew. Not sure if Cornelius or Ahmed will take over at that point.
Yeah, I'll start, and if Ahmed has anything to add, then he'll join. We've had a meeting with KUI. So as you might remember, there was a demo of Cask, a KUI extension, which was pitched last SIG CLI meeting. And yeah, together we looked at how Cask and Crew could work together. And as we understand it right now, Cask is sort of duplicating plugin management work. Because it would basically manage UI plugins. So from our perspectives, this does not make so much sense because it would duplicate work that Crew already has done and which is working. So we thought about how we could do that in a more efficient way, meaning less duplicated work and getting it done quickly. And there are basically two options. The first option would be to have fat UI plugin bundles, which include an Electron instance and KUI for each UI plugin. So in that picture, the Cask would totally be gone. This might work well because right now there will probably not be so many UI plugins, so the actual duplicated space on disk and wasted download bandwidth is probably limited. And another idea still using the installation machinery of Crew would be to have a base plugin, which installs the Electron and GUI dependencies, and then have thin UI plugin bundles, which come with a helper binary, which first checks if the base dependency is installed, and if it isn't, it taps out and advises the user to install the UI based plugin first, and then continues on with executing. So both of these would work, and with Crew out of the box. And I think for the second case, a lot of Cask work could actually be reused. So yeah, let's see where this goes now. And I see that the GitHub issue is already linked. There you can also find a bit more about the discussion and also some meeting notes in there. And about the upcoming KubeCon talk, I think Ahmed has to tell us because I don't know anything about it.
Yes, Phil, talk on Crew.
Cool.
Can you, Ahmed, can you link the can you put a link from schedule in the agenda, please, for that particular talk of yours?
It's
I guess that would
it's
be
up there. It's like on the top of your screen.
Oh, perfect. Awesome. I'm gonna copy that one over here as well, just in case someone is looking for it. Awesome. So if you will be at KubeCon, definitely go check this one out as well. Anything else from Crew?
Well, I could present a short demo about our plugin bot, which approves version bumps. But given that there's only 10 minutes left, I don't know if it fits.
Let's move that topic, the demo, over to the next meeting.
Cool.
Okay, perfect. I'll add you right away for the future topics. And I still want to hear from Sean about the kubectl independence.
Okay, so we've removed the dependency on kubectl get. We have 2 remaining dependencies. Actually, the PR to remove the get dependency was in the merge queue for the last day, and I had to rebase, but I'm calling it done. And we started work on convert as a standalone binary. I've actually got a binary working, need to work on flags. But once we have that, then we can remove the convert dependency. I don't believe the final auth reconcile dependency, the dependency on RBAC, is going to be addressed anytime soon. So Jordan said he started down a particular path and it didn't work out very well. But that's where we are now. Any questions?
Thanks a lot, Sean, for the work. I guess for the auth reconcile, KubeCon, let's meet the 3 of us and try to figure out what will be the best path toward. Either we need to help Jordan extracting that library, or we will try to convince Jordan and the rest of the folks that we will copy the code inside of the kubectl.
Yeah, he wasn't real.
Yeah,
he wasn't real thrilled about copying, but
I know.
Yep.
But we could copy it and ensure that it is not his main worry, at least from what I was talking with him last time, his main worry is that if we publish this code under kubectl, it'll be easier for people to consume it and then be reliable on the code that we publish within kubectl, and that it will be wrong. But I guess we could move it as part of the internal package under kubectl, which would ensure that nobody outside of kubectl would be able to use it. And we would literally freeze any changes to that code base and ensure that it is always in sync with whatever is in upstream. Upstream being Kubernetes repo, up to the point where we actually could get the separate library for the reconciled code. But I guess,
yeah, I think the your idea of getting together and choosing a path at KubeCon sounds great.
Yeah. I think we have about a month to finish a lot of code movies, and we still have a lot of to do within the independence part. So the discussion, let's leave it until KubeCon, and then we will try to come up with a final solution to the problem.
And I'll put the link to the contributor summit kubectl development workshop. That'll be a 90-minute workshop, as it says in the announcements. Yeah, looking forward to seeing you guys there.
Yeah, so am I. Does anyone else have any stand-ups that I want to share with other folks? Okay, hearing none, thank you very much for your time, and see you in 2 weeks. Have a good one. Bye.